Hey, this is the Big Hardcore Gamer. Now, 2023 has been one of the best years in gaming that I can remember, and at the point of making this video, I've completed 20 games this year. So I decided to put together this video ranking my top 10 games this year. Now, this list only covers games that I've beaten this year, so it doesn't include Like a Dragon Gaiden, The Man Who Erased His Name, Lords of the Fallen, Dead Island 2 or Diablo 4. Also, this game is ranked on my enjoyment of the game, so you may see some that you'd think would be higher on the list, but are actually lower because I simply had more fun playing a different game. So let's get started off with number 10 on the list. So at number 10 is Forspoken. Forspoken is a game that got a lot of unfair hate at the beginning of the year. The media mostly talked about the dialogue and always used the bad dialogue in the first 10 to 15 minutes of the game as their example. And it was heavily memed on social media by people who mostly didn't even play the game. There was a lot of talk about it having an empty open world, but in reality, those who play it will tell you that the open world was filled with enemies that you keep running into, challenging enemies at that. Forspoken actually had a good story, which gets better the further into the game you get. The combat definitely takes some time to master, but they give you a lot of spells to choose from to, to suit your playstyle. The boss fights against the Taunters were a lot of fun, and so was traversing using the magical parkour. And there were some good twists in the story towards the end that had me curious to see what was going to happen in the sequel. Unfortunately, I doubt we'll ever get a sequel due to poor sales. Don't get me wrong, it did have some issues, like the slow start, some performance issues that I had from the performance mode, and some of the labyrinths were repetitive, but it didn't deserve the hate that it got, and I had a lot of fun with the game. At number 9 is Final Fantasy 16. Now, Final Fantasy 16 is a game that I kept changing my mind about while playing. This is only the second Final Fantasy game that I've played. The first one was 7 Remake, so the bar was already set pretty high with this one. In my opinion, it isn't as good as 7 Remake, but it is still a good game with some of the craziest battles I've ever seen in a video game. The combat is similar to what you'd find in a Devil May Cry game, with a Game of Thrones style story that kept me wanting to see how it ends. And the Icon boss, those battles were probably the closest we're ever going to get to a Godzilla game. And the further into the story you get, the crazier the battles get. The negatives I did have for this one were some of the cutscenes do drag on way too long, and so do some of the side missions. I'd say I liked half of the side missions in the game, and the other half I really didn't care about. And those are the ones that actually seem to drag on the longest. Also, when not in combat or a cutscene, the frame rate would severely drop from 60 frames per second to, possibly 30, maybe a little bit over 30. Wherever it was incredibly jarring for me. But overall, it was a good game that took me around 85 hours to complete, and I probably will pick up the DLC whenever I have time to play it. Now, at number 8 is this year's best stealth drop that I never expected to be this good. Hi-Fi Rush dropped on a busy week while I was already playing Dead Space and Forspoken, so I played it for about an hour and then put it down. When I finally got back to it, I was hooked, and I played nothing else until I completed it. Now, before this game, I'd never played a rhythm-based action game before, so this may be why I had so much fun with it, but I was impressed with how everything in the game synced to the beat. The Saturday morning cartoon art style, the fun combat, the fun boss battles that got better and better the further I got into the game. My favourite boss battle was the banker that turns into a robot werewolf, and it's just overall a really fun game. I played this one on PC Game Pass, and although there was a lot of people hyping this up online, only 49% of the players beat the first boss. So I mean this as someone who's beat the game. if you drop this game, get back on it, because you're sleeping on an absolute gem of a game. At number 7 is Alan Wake 2. The first of three horror games on this list, but the only one that scared the crap out of me on multiple occasions and made me think I was going to have a heart attack many times during my live streams. I love being able to play as two protagonists, both Alan Wake and Saga Anderson, and I liked how the gameplay was different between the two of them. I love the detective aspects of Saga's story, being able to rewrite the story from the writer's room, and when playing as Alan Wake, and how both their stories intertwine. I streamed the entire game on my channel and also did a review that you can check out. But if you haven't played this yet, I definitely recommend you check out this game. Number 6 is another horror game, the Dead Space remake. They basically took one of the GOATs of the horror genre and improved the graphics, gave it a creepier atmosphere, better audio design, and gave Isaac a voice and a script. They added backtracking and more zero-G sections. Although I didn't find it scary this time around, it still placed higher on my list due to the gameplay being more fun than Alan Wake 2. And yes, cutting off their limbs is still very satisfying. If you haven't played this gem of a game yet, it's currently very cheap on sale and also on Game Pass, so you should definitely check this one out. Speaking of GOATs, at number 5 is the Resident Evil 4 remake. Now, this is a horror game that really isn't scary at all, but the over-the-top action, cheesy dialogue, ridiculous set pieces, boss fights, and ability to parry a chainsaw with a combat knife makes this one of the most fun out of the 3 horror games on this list. They took everything that made the original a great game and improved Leon's movement, the graphics, and made Ashley less annoying. Another masterpiece that you need to check out. 2023 has been the year of the Souls-likes for me, with 3 games completed and 1 in progress. Remnant II was the second Souls-like I completed this year, and is basically a Souls game with guns. The odds of enemies you have to deal with in this game can be intense, and as expected, the boss fights can be brutal. There are so many secret dungeons in the game that I know I missed some of the boss fights on my first playthrough. The ones I did face made me dig deep and activate the get good in me to fight my way to victory. There's also a good selection of guns to choose from, and when I found the right boss gun, I stuck with it for most of the game, and all weapons can be modded. I also loved how you can equip 2 archetypes and level both of them up simultaneously. There were also secret archetypes that could be discovered by exploring. This was definitely a banger, and it almost made it into my top 3 games of the year. Now, before I talk about the top 3 on this list, I want to take a moment for a couple of honorable mentions, both of which are indie games I checked out this year and think you should too. Strayed Lights is an action-adventure game with color-coordinated, parry-based combat. You will have to switch between colors to match your enemies to be able to parry and attack them. It's a unique take on the parry-based combat, and I always like to try something different, which is probably why I love checking out indie games. The other game is Trang II, which I received a review code for on PC. This game is for anyone that loved the fair games back in the day, as this takes a lot of influence from them. We're talking bullet time combat with limbs being blasted off and bodies exploding from shotgun blasts. The story may not be anything special, but the gameplay is a lot of fun in this one. It released on consoles as well since I played it, so you should definitely check this one out. Right, at number 3 is another Souls-like, Lies of P. This is a Souls-like that's heavily influenced by Bloodborne, but with a Pinocchio story. You're playing as Pinocchio in this game, battling against other puppets, monsters, and human enemies. The boss fights are the most brutal I've seen this year. Some of these bosses actually took me days to beat. I actually think like a couple of them took me like an entire week to beat. There's a good selection of weapons, and one feature that I loved was that you can combine weapon parts to create your own weapons. The one I used the most in this one was a salamander blade to apply the burn effect on my enemies, combined with the acid spear Andor to give me a bit more range and the stabbing attack. P also has a Legion arm, which can be switched and upgraded. Arms include a puppet string that lets you grab enemies and pull them from a distance as if you're a Scorpion in Mortal Kombat, a flamethrower, and even a gun. There are lots of upgrades options for the arms, weapons, and P himself, and also multiple endings depending on what choices you make. I was also pleased that Lies of P released in a great condition. I didn't experience any bugs that I can remember, and it's been updated a few times since. If you're into Souls games, I seriously recommend that you check this one out. At number 2 is Star Wars Jedi Survivor. Now, I'm not a die-hard Star Wars fan, but I do love the Jedi games. Now, Jedi Survivor took everything that was great about the first game and improved and added to it. There are more lightsaber stances to choose from, and choosing the right one makes taking down some enemies a bit easier than others. One of the stances included Blaster. The different planets are bigger and more fun to explore. More activities including bounty hunting and Jedi temples to find and explore, some very challenging boss fights, some of which are Souls-like level of difficulty, some holy shit moments later on in the game, and great performances from the cast. The only negative I found with this game was the performance issues that the game had at launch and even up to a few months after launch. The performance mode was so bad that I had to switch to quality mode to keep it at a steady frame rate. Even with the frustrating performance issues, this game was still good enough to make it into my number 2 spot. I've heard that the issues have been fixed now, so if you haven't played this one yet, you should definitely check out. And of course, the number 1 spot goes to Marvel's Spider-Man 2. Now, this game starts off incredible with a massive scale boss fight that to be honest, you'd usually find towards the end of most games, and it just kept getting better and better after that. Swinging through New York is still just as much fun as in the first game and in Miles Morales, but now we also got the wingsuits, which was something we never thought we needed. Traversal was so much fun in this game, but I didn't even use fast travel until towards the end of the game. The removal of the gadget wheel actually made the combat more fluid. The stories of both Spider-Man trying to balance being a superhero with everyday life while both dealing with the loss, Miles with his father and Peter with Aunt May from the first game, while at the same time handling the threat of Kraven the Hunter and Venom, as well as a few other enemies, was done really well. Great performances from Yuri Lowenthal and Naji Jetta as both Spider-Man, and Tony Todd absolutely smashed it as the voice of Venom. This being my game of the year was decided the moment that Venom appears in the game. If you know, you know. There were some side missions that I really didn't like and could have done with them not being there, but it didn't take away from the amount of fun I had playing this game. And let's face it, we play these games for fun. So that's my top 10 games completed in 2023. Comment below to tell me what your favorite games were this year. Maybe there's something I missed out on that I can pick up when on sale or play on one of the streaming services. If you enjoyed the video, please leave it a like. And if you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button and check out some other content. You can also find me on Twitter, or X as it's called now, and TikTok at Bigg Hardcore, and on Facebook by searching for big hardcore gamer. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.